Mr. Kris Runge. How are you, man?
Good. How are you doing, Kris?
I'm doing well. Under the gun here, getting Sports Car Vacationland figured out, and wanted to take the time still to reach out to you and see how you were doing. It's been a long time since we talked.
Yeah, it has been.
I was looking at some of the old episodes from Overcrest, and I'd always thought, I'm like, man, I've had Runge on the podcast. He's such a cool guy. And then I look back, and all we've done is like a little live thing at like a local car show where you came and sat down with us under the Easy Up, and we chatted a little bit about Porsche, but we didn't necessarily talk about you and what you do. And even if we had, gosh, that would have been 7 years ago that we had that conversation.
Yeah,
And
that's crazy.
I remember the first time I ever saw one of your cars was at a Cars and Coffee thing here at like the Motorplex, like the car condo place. And I remember seeing you roll in, and it was your first car. Tell us how you got started doing this, and like even conceiving that first car. Like, why did you? It takes a big leap, I think, to build a car from scratch. So I'm wondering, what was the leverage point that made you do it?
Gosh, man, it could be a very, very long story. I'll try to keep it somewhat short.
You don't have
But
to. It's all in how much time you have. I've got time. So if you've got the time,
yeah,
I've got the time. You tell the story how you want.
well, I like a lot of car guys from early childhood. Anything with wheels, wings, um, and or a hull, basically. Planes, trains, automobiles interested me. And so as a kid, I was always into skating and biking and building ramps and that sort of thing. Um, and living on a hobby farm, you take old mowers apart and try to make a go-kart out of them, the kind of the standard kid stuff, and most often didn't get things put back together. But on a couple occasions I did, and had a functioning go-kart or a custom bike, things like that I would build. But as soon as I was old enough, I was actually before I was old enough to legally drive, but when I was 13, I got my first truck, 1951 GMC 3/4 ton. And my dad and I got that running and drove it around the gravel roads by our little hobby farm. Um, and I loved that truck. It was so much fun. And then my uncle was kind of a hot rodder, and he introduced, I think, more of the custom car culture to me. Um, and so he lived just a few miles down the road from us, and we would go down to his shop and see what he was working on. He was always restoring something, and he did body work and paint just on his own cars. And so that kind of planted the seed, I think, of what was possible when you wanted to start modifying cars. He did mostly period correct restorations to original with mild custom work. So I got into air cooled cars when I turned 16, and we actually, living on that hobby farm, my dad would store motorcycles, boats, and cars in the winters growing up. And it was probably 1987, I think, somebody came in with a 914. And that was the first air-cooled car I had ever seen. I didn't know it was air-cooled at the time. I just thought it looked so interesting because it looked like it could be driving forward or backwards,
Yeah,
the 914
sure.
odd shape. And it fascinated me. And I would actually go in the barn and get in that car. I wasn't supposed to touch it, but I'd pop the door open and sit in it and pretend I was driving it. And it left an imprint on me and my fascination with that styling. So when I was 16, I bought my first Volkswagen Bug, and we started fixing that up. It ran and drove okay, but just basic maintenance and learning the car and being out on the gravel roads, drifting the car and realizing, wow, the trailing throttle oversteer when you start to let the back end become the front end on accident. And so I was hooked at that point. And I had always thought Porsches were interesting, but that's when I really started to study the brand, buy books, and like get serious about learning the history of Porsche, why they did what they did, the engineering. Um, you know, going from the 4 cylinders to the sixes and then the racing heritage. I became a passionate fan of air cooled cars, rear engine cars, mid engine cars, and became a bookworm and started saving up to buy my first 911.
FCP Euro is an online retailer of OE, OEM, genuine aftermarket, and performance parts for European cars. From BMW to Porsche, Volvo, Audi, Volkswagen, and more, their catalog is a one-stop shop with over 275,000 unique products, including expert-assembled kits to make shopping simpler. Whether you're doing a suspension overhaul or an oil change, these kits really take all the guesswork out of the process. No more wondering if those bolts are one-time use stretch bolts or if you need a gasket to go with that. Just select the kit you need and you're good to go. Plus, every product they sell is backed by a lifetime replacement guarantee, even wear items like wiper blades, brake pads, and oil filters. With the opening of their distribution center in Mesa, Arizona, FCP Euro is now shipping parts from both coasts, serving most of the country in 3 days or less with the free shipping option. We at Overcrest have been working with FCP Euro for years and can vouch for them. They're real people who are passionate about what they do and the cars we love while making sure they put you, the customer, first. Check them out today at FCP. Check them out today at fcpeuro.com and take advantage of free shipping on any order over $49. Looking for the best app for navigating your next adventure? Look no further than Onyx Off-Road. With over 750,000 miles of trails and comprehensive offline maps, you can explore without worrying about cell service. The app features trail ratings, detailed information, and a discover tool to help you find trails near you. Onyx Off-Road also includes public and private land boundaries, so you'll always know where you can legally off-road, camp, and explore. Want to stay connected? The app features a cell service layer, so you can plan your route with service in mind, which is great for emergencies or just staying in touch. And for added peace of mind, there's a wildfire layer that helps you avoid active fires and smoky areas, keeping you safe and aware of current conditions. With tools like Route Builder, waypoint marking, real-time updates, and route sharing, you're fully equipped for any adventure. Try it for free for 7 days and hit the trails with confidence. Download Onyx Off-Road today.
Yeah, so as a teenager, I saved up for my first 911. I was able to buy that. I think it was 1998, 78 911 Targa SC that had steel flares, turbo suspension. Somebody either ordered the turbo components for it, or
Right.
they got a beat up wrecked car and converted it. But either way, it was well done. Was really fun to drive, and that was my first 911 experience. And this is back when the Porsche culture, and this could be a deep dive, has changed immensely with social media. This is when you would buy a 911, 1998. I think I got that car for 11,500, right around there. They were asking like 12,500, and I got it for 11,500. You know, so it wasn't like a huge blue chip type of stretch for a young person to get into a Porsche, a 911 specifically.
Yep.
And that has
And
changed.
that had to have been a pretty nice car in 98. I mean, you probably could have gotten a total pile for, half the price of that even. There was things just
for sure.
You could have gotten a real beater for $4,500 if you wanted to. They were so unloved.
Yeah. I was buying 911s, like the beaters, even into, let's see, 2005, 2006, 4,500, 5,500 bucks. Like parked, hasn't been driven in 10 years.
Yeah. Needs everything.
Yeah, well, not even. You just kind of did basic stuff to it. And I was pretty good at finding deals. This is before Marketplace and Craigslist was just getting popular. But yeah, it wasn't like it is now. That's for sure. You didn't have and I love Bring a Trailer. I think it's awesome, but you didn't have that factor where people would go on Bring a Trailer, look for the highest price possible, and be like, "That's what my car's worth," and it wasn't even a sale. It was just, bid to or something. I don't know.
Right.
So yeah, I then we kept that first 911 for quite a long time. For us, it was like 5 years we had that car. Um, and in that time, I had several other 911s as well. I know you don't like 912s, but I went from 911s, had a 930 slant nose. I got into 912s and I loved them after having, the 911s and 930. Uh, I
Why?
just, why did I love them?
Yeah. What is it like? Let me preface this by saying I don't dislike 912s. My conflict with 912s is when someone comes up to me and they look at my car and they try to justify their 912 compared to something else. If people just take a 912 for what it is, it's
Yeah.
a 912, it does what it does well, and it's just that. But it's always like this, almost like this Napoleon complex that comes with them.
Mm-hmm.
Almost, it's very similar to like a 944 guy that pulls up at the gas station and tells me his car's 50-50 weight balance, which has happened 2 times in my life. It's just like,
Yep.
I don't need to know that. Your car's cool. It doesn't have to be compared to something else. It's just cool as is. It
Yeah.
doesn't need a comparison. And I think that that's
Yeah.
kind of what gets me on 912s is there always
That's
has to be the comparison.
that is very understandable, and I think that happens. Like we have the 356 we got a couple summers ago, and you'll have the Carmen Gia or the VW guys, that kind of do that. And it's a different car. A 356 is not a Carmen Gia. It's not a Beetle. A 912 is not a 911. It never will be. Although you could swap the engine, it would be pretty darn, pretty much the same if
I
you put a
thought about
911
that. I
engine.
thought back when I was first getting into one, I'm like, should I just get a 912 and like swap the engine out? Because for a while, 912s were really cheap, and engines were kind of cheap and plentiful too, like 15 years ago. Like you could do it, and I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know, that's maybe not the right route to go or whatever. But it's almost hard to
Mhm.
do that now, man. Like cutting apart a 912 to make it a 911, you might as well just buy the 911 by the time you're done with the cost, because 912s have become so valuable.
They have. Yeah. The reason that I liked them, um, I was kind of interested in them because I hadn't had one yet. That's what first got me into it. And I was reading about it, and you see the things that that people say to you, like, well, it's lighter, and when you're in the turns, it'll keep up with the 911. When you're in the twisties, it's on the straights where the 911 will pull away. And, you read all these claims,
Yeah.
but it's the simplicity of it. It's kind of like you get a little bit of the best of both worlds, the simplicity of the 356 and the driving experience of a 911.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
kind of that's what kind of made it fun for me. And then a 911, I've always been interested in driving slow cars fast, and the 911 is a fairly fast car, so you can push the 912, and it's at its limit.
You're using it all of it.
Yeah, you're using it all. When the 911, you're not there. You're not as often in the
Yes.
911.
That's
You know what I
true.
mean?
Yeah.
And I kind of like that. I like pushing the slower cars where that
That's the
they don't
best
have
case for a
much more.
912 I've ever heard.
Huh?
That's the best case for a 912 I've ever heard. That's good.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's just my take on it. I never got one to try to, because I couldn't. Well, that's a weird way to say it. I wouldn't say I couldn't afford a 911, but I just thought they were interesting. Hadn't tried one yet, and wanted to see what it was all about. The 930 that I had was a car where you knew very quickly, with the way that I drive, and I knew very quickly that car could kill me. Like on the way home from picking it up, I almost swapped ins at about 140 miles per hour. My wife saw it happen. I was passing a group of cars on a long straightaway out in the middle of nowhere, and it overboosted. Somebody had tampered with the wastegate and the boost system, and I did not know that, and I found out very quickly. So I got it back under control. The car was dancing as I was screaming past this traffic, and yeah, I never did that again.
We've all been young and dumb once. That's for sure.
Yeah. So that had, I couldn't even tell you how many Porsches. I had a lot. Probably.
Well, what you obviously you love the Porsches. You love the you love the 4-cylinder stuff. You had Beetle 912 stuff like that. Where's the corner where you go, I'm gonna make a car? because that has never really occurred to me that I'm going to build a car from scratch. I love
Yeah.
modifying cars and doing things, but like doing a car from scratch, especially, I look at the craftsmanship of your first car, and I look at now, and there's a big breadth there. You've learned a lot over that period of time, like a lot is, and as you've perfected, not perfected, sought perfecting your craft as you continually learn and evolve and stuff like that. I mean, that's a
Mhm.
big leap to not only do it, but do it and then put yourself out there. I mean, that's huge. In the car world, people are very, very judgy. Why did you do it?
So what happened as this Porsche thing snowballed for me, buying and selling cars? In 2010, I believe was the year, I found a 67 912 on Craigslist that was in South Dakota. And during those earlier years, I was able to go to Amelia Island a handful of times and to the Concours d'Elegance and see some of the um, early aluminum bodied racers like Curtis. I think it's called a 500J, if I remember right. Bare aluminum bodied racer. Um, and those cars, when I saw those in the aluminum, the work, and it was imperfect, it told the story of how the car was built. And I was just enamored, man. Those cars to me, like it spoke to my soul in a way that no other car had. Um, there were there was a display by Steve Mole, I believe. He's has a custom shop in California, Mole Coach Builders, and he had raw aluminum cars there. And that also that work was like, I didn't know this then because it was new to me, but now looking back, that work, the metal work was absolutely beautiful. Like I still aspire to be as good as the person. I'm not sure what the guy's name is. I heard he has an older fellow in his shop that shapes those panels, but that really opened my eyes to this type of car. So go back to that car in South Dakota. The classic little old lady answers the phone and says her husband had this car in the barn and he sadly passed away. Um, and she wants to get rid of it. And I've learned by this time to always ask, is there anything else that you'd want to sell? And she just gasped. She's like, Kris, our barns are full. You can hardly walk through them. And she said he has these tools. He was obsessed with this English wheel. And I was like, in my mind, I envisioned this beautiful big cast English wheel. And I asked if she'd be willing to sell it. She said, yeah, she would. She would like to get the box cleaned out and see it go to a good home. And I told her, that was one of my dreams, was to use an English wheel and see just how it works. So I went out there with a 24-foot enclosed trailer, and I ended up making like 3 trips buying all these tools. And the English wheel was not a cast wheel. It was homemade using I-beam and really rough. Looking back now, I know, like, if somebody were to tell me they found all these tools and show me pictures of them, I'd probably be like, you can find a lot better stuff for cheaper. But like, what you don't know at that point, the passion is way up here, and the understanding of how the tools work was at a very
Ignorance
minimum.
is can be a really good thing too sometimes. Like the not knowing can be a huge momentum boost. Because if you know, and if it's almost like if you educate yourself too much ahead of time versus just jumping right in, you can almost stop yourself sometimes, or slow yourself down, or impede your own progress.
Kris, you're 100% right. With the classes we do, and I have a lot of people contact me and they ask me, how do you start? And they've already like found so many reasons to convince themselves not to, because of fear. Really, it comes down, a lot of it's fear. A lot of it's like, I'm not educated enough. I can't weld good enough, and like, there's a fine line where we talk about this a lot in my shop with different guys that come through. We have these fascinating conversations, but the word care is so important, and you have to care. if care kind of directs and guides you, and the pursuit of excellence guides you, you'll study as you go to find the best way possible to do things. You're willing to accept what some might call failure and use it as a course correction to get better. And it's just a journey, and it becomes a lifestyle. It really, like, you start to apply these things to everything you do in life, and it's a really fun thing. And you see people who may not have taken a risk start to do it. But I didn't know that. I had been raised that way. And I think that snowboarding and skateboarding, that was my approach to those sports, to just be the most excellent and learn the most excellent way possible. So I bought these tools, brought them back to the barn where my dad stored that little 914. And he let me just kind of set stuff up in there, and we'd go out there and tinker. So during my teenage years, I bought all these Porsche books and was kind of a study of the Porsche history.
Hold on a sec. What did your dad think of all these tools? Was he like, what are you doing? What was the thought of as you bring all this stuff? Was he like, this is awesome? Was it encouraging?
That's actually an important part of this whole story, because my dad is a treasure hunter. Like, he is, ever since I was a kid, he was scuba certified or PADI certified. Like, he was serious about treasure hunting.
Not like treasure hunter like me that goes to the thrift store and finds a cool lamp. Not that kind of treasure hunter. Same
thing. Like, okay. Growing up, our evenings, like summer evenings, like where we're at now, here in July, we would, after work, we would go drive, we would go to junkyards. We would drive through town during city scrap day when everybody had their stuff out at the curb. And that was our idea of fun, is just other people's junk, is treasure to us. And we got Coke machines, we've got candy machines, old Schwinn bikes, and we'd fix them up. And that was just our thing. So when I brought this stuff home, my dad, of course, and actually my uncle, the hot rodder, went with me to the farm, because I didn't even know some of these tools that I saw. I had no idea what they would do. And he's like, no, you're going to want that. And he ended up buying some cool stuff too, because I didn't have enough money to buy everything. So he bought a lathe and some other interesting tools. We brought all this stuff back. My dad was excited to see it in the barn and see what I was going to do with it. So my parents have always been kind of like that, like almost crazy supportive of these big ideas. So I got it set up, and the idea that I had, I just wanted to see what the English wheel could do and how it worked. Once I realized what it was capable of, I felt a little more confident, like, okay, I want to do a car. I want to do my own coach work. And so my fascination with Porsche, with this post-war German racers, is really the privateer tool room racers. Kind of became my obsession over the years. And there was a handful of cars. I'm still discovering cars that I never knew about, but there was a handful of privateers who took Volkswagen and Porsche parts and built these home-built Eigenbau racers. And they're just the coolest cars. They're like little fighter planes, warbirds on the ground.
Post-war was crazy for this stuff, especially in well, here too, but it was different here. There was different kinds of hot rodding. But in Europe, this stuff was wild, what they were doing with old Volkswagen stuff. And even in Italy, they were doing crazy shit too. It was an explosion of coach building and custom, like, little race cars and stuff like that.
Nokian Tires has officially launched their newest tire, and it's one we're especially excited about, as it's tailor-made for the type of driving we like to do here at Overcrest. It's called the Surpass ASO1, and what sets it apart is it's a high-performance, all-season tire. It's made specifically for drivers who want the most out of their cars without sacrificing capability when the roads get slick. We know all too well how unpredictable the roads can be, whether you're out on one of our rallies, one of your own adventures, or just running to the grocery store. And let's face it, a car can only perform as well as the tires it's on. That's why the new Surpass ASO1 is so great. It offers the grip of a dedicated performance tire, but won't leave you stranded if the road or weather gets rough. Not only does it come with a 55,000-mile warranty, it also offers Nokian Tires pothole protection. If you happen to damage your tire beyond repair, Nokian will replace it for free. Check it out at nokiantires.com/surpass. Take a moment to also give a shout out to all the Drivers Club members. If you're not a Drivers Club member, you are missing out. We have, as you know, our fall rally is coming up in October, and we also have Sports Car Vacationland and Camp Overcrest happening in just a couple weeks. It's happening and coming up very quickly, and Drivers Club members get a discount, and they will be the first to know about all sorts of new merch drops that might be coming. So head on over to overcrestproductions.com/drivers club and check it out. All the awesome exclusive content. We have whole back catalogs of history stories and episodes that haven't been released to the general public. Check it out. There's a lot of stuff. It's awesome to support the content creators that you like. And hopefully, if you're listening to this, that means it might be us. Check it out.
Yeah, it was so cool. And the idea, you know, when I built my first car, I was kind of in the same place. Like, I had basically zero budget to work with. I needed to figure out how I was going to do it. And it was driven by go fast passion, you know, and so that idea after World War II, when there were these cool, beautiful aluminum body cars were emerging from the rubble of the war, was the neatest thing ever. And specifically with the Glockler story, Walter Glockler, who built the Volkswagen Eigenbau, and went racing, and he was outrunning a lot of the 356s at the time, like 1951, 52. And Porsche came to him and said, "Hey, why don't you put Porsche running gear in that, put a Porsche badge on the nose, and we'll help you with parts and whatnot." And so he did that. And in these historic photos, you can see the nose of the car goes from VW Eigenbau to Porsche. And ultimately, that led to Porsche building the first 550 Spider. They went to the same coach builder, C.H. Weidenhausen, and he was in Frankfurt, Germany, and that's where the first 550s were made, using Glockler's blueprint, basically.
Right.
To me, that story was just one of the neatest parts of Porsche history. And that idea, the privateers paving the way for the competition cars, it carried even into the late 50s, with the privateers building their own stuff, modifying their own parts, you know, and really Porsche would catch on to what they were doing. Unfortunately, today there's so many regulations, it's hard for that to happen. You know, your average Joe isn't going to show up to Daytona and win, but that's back in those days that could happen. So
it's crazy that everybody sees the stage and they're like, "Oh yeah, you can go like Lemons Racing, and you can go do, you know, Ojibwe Forest Rally, and you can do all these things that are really grassroots," and it's true.
Mm-hmm.
But back in the day, the big stage was still accessible, and I think that's fascinating. And it's such a maybe it's a little. You know what anemoia is? Have you ever heard of the word anemoia?
I don't think so.
It's a word that basically means having nostalgia for a time that you never experienced.
Ooh.
Yes, it's
Yeah,
like
I need to know that word.
right? And I feel
Yeah.
and I didn't live it. I wasn't there. I was not alive. But when I see it, I mourn for not being able to experience it. And I don't know, and I'll never know if I would have maybe loved that or not loved that. And I wish there was some sort of flavor of that today. And I don't think it exists. And what you're doing is really cool. I think that's probably as close as it gets, is like building this stuff and building it by hand and putting it together and designing it yourself and going through the trials and the tribulations and the failures and the successes. And, you know, both as a craftsman and as a businessman and everything. It's a very different business model than what most people would expect to exist today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, that's so interesting. Sometimes people ask me about that, not that specific word, but that topic comes up, and I tell people, like sometimes I feel like I was born like 60, 70 years too late. I was supposed to be then, but I'm here now. Me and a couple other buddies who are into the similar stuff, we talk about that. And then you have that longing to go back. So we a lot of us, I think you do this too, like you create your own way to enter that. And cars do that. It's a time machine. They do that. They put you in this capsule and you can get in a place where you can look around and you don't see anything today. All you see is 1950 or 51 or 72, you know. Your 911 is a 72, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Are you ever out on like a back road where you can't really see anything? And then you
always.
and then you pretend it's 1972 and you're like,
Yeah,
what?
I look around and I think to myself, I'm seeing the exact same thing that somebody would have seen in 1961 in our 356. You know, like I'm there right now, and the current world doesn't exist.
Yeah, I do that all the time. And I look at the sun and I look at the trees and I look at the clouds and I go, yeah, this is the same thing people experienced over centuries and decades and everything. And yeah, it's an interesting experience, especially if you have an old thing and you're in an old
Mhm.
thing that fits the period of time. And yeah, I think that's like the definition of that word anemoia. You're just in a completely different place and you have this weird nostalgia and connection to it that it's not real, but it
Mhm.
kind of is at the same time.
Dude, that's exactly why I built my first car. I had to, you know, I had a lot of like some stuff going on in my personal life, and I needed an out. And I think there's a healthy way to do that, and this was the healthiest way for me to do that. Like I just needed to put my energy into something, see something come to life, and then experience that thing in the way that we're discussing. And that
Did,
is what
did
I
it
did. It
work?
took,
Did it work?
yeah,
Did
yeah,
it
it
give you
worked
what you
for me,
needed?
dude. 100%. And now what's wild is, you know, I'm sharing this in a depth that I maybe haven't gone into ever in podcasts and things. I've had these conversations in my shop with people, but what's interesting is that there are people that have that like hole in their gut or their soul, like, and they want to experience this on some level, and those are the people who buy my cars. They're not going to the Ferrari dealership to buy what I call a. I love certain Ferraris, so don't get me wrong, but to buy a male enhancement car, like they want to experience something authentic in today's day and age that's mechanically authentic, that has soul. I mean, when Finn, my son, and I build these cars and the other people who come in and help, like our soul is imparted into our work, into the chairs we build, the cars we build. And people are hungry for that. They're hungry for authenticity, and you cannot fake it. There's a lot of fake authenticity out there, and there's plenty for sale, but we don't sell that. You know, we don't build that. We love our cars. Anybody who has one of my cars that I've ever built is in touch with me. They have my cell phone number. We usually text or or email or call on a regular basis. It's family, you know. So I
How
just
does it?
jumped way ahead in the story, but
No, that's okay. There's no timeline. What does it feel like to basically create something out of whole cloth? As I guess you'd say, I would say whole cloth is a sheet of aluminum. What is it like to shape something and see the shape that you envision in your mind, or on the buck, which is obviously something that you envision in your mind anyway? What does it feel like to see that shape come to life?
um, it's interesting because it's changed, and I still have the same feelings that I did early on. Early on, I was so fascinated with seeing a flat sheet of aluminum turn into something with curves and something that's beautiful to the eye. And in my eye, the process of getting it to that point where it's taking shape, where you could see whatever tools were used, you could see their imprint along the way, and that's what I found beautiful. Like I didn't want to erase those things in my early cars, and I actually just on a regular basis I have people ask me if early cars of mine are available. Just this morning I was emailing with the guy. He's like, I want the earliest one possible, you know, because of that. He wants the story and he wants that. now as I'm building, there's that pursuit of excellence. And to me, we don't chase perfection. Perfection is what it is. But it's a ghost to me. It can't be achieved and it'll drive you crazy. But excellence is like a step in the journey and in the process of learning. And with coach building specifically, excellence, like, because we do everything from, we build our own chassis. We're now designing and building engines. Like that, it would take 4 lifetimes to gain all of the knowledge and the understanding to achieve excellence in every one of those areas. But that's what we're going for. You know, we're trying to do that. And now we have other people helping us achieve that. But in the new cars that I build, we're pushing that finish. And I mean, it's inevitable that they're not going to look like the early cars. They're much more refined. The panel work is much smoother. But I do have customers who are like, don't make that disappear. I know you can, but don't. And it just comes down to how long you want to sit there and hammer and dolly and finish and smooth.
Well, you're different, man. You're different than the cars were when you started.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's, what is it? It's got to be almost 15 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yep.
Of course the cars are going to be different. They're an extension of your hands. So you've grown. I mean, chasing perfection is obviously a fool's errand, but chasing mastery isn't. You know, you'll never get there. It's a very Japanese philosophy, right? You're never there, but it's a worthy and lofty goal. And I think it's really cool that you're also bringing your son in and teaching him as well. I think it's an undervalued gift is when someone has learned and spent, for example, 15 years learning a craft. And as you get older, there'll be a point where you've spent 40 years doing it, and handing down that knowledge to someone and teaching other people is incredibly generous. And I think it's one of the best things that humans can do is pass knowledge down. And it's cool that you're doing it with Finn.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, man. We have a good time doing this, and Finn has always had a really high attention to detail ever since he was a little kid. I mean, his eye and his style is so interesting, and he's got the right makeup for a job like this. And our like parenting philosophy has always been that, like, to kind of provide the tools and the encouragement, but not push. We just kind of, oh, you're interested in this? Well, what do you think of this tool? You know, here's how it works. If they're interested, we'll teach our kids, but we just kind of let them grow at their own pace. And Finn has taken off in the shop. When he turned 16 and started getting into cars, he's on, I think he's fixed up 3 or 4 cars now, and of his own. He has his own little garage, and then working here full time as well. So
yeah, it's cool he does it on the side without supervision from you and help from you, you know, and he's like on his own, doing his own thing. That's rad.
Yeah. He works in here till like 6 or 6:30, and then he works at his garage. He bought a little piece of land with a garage on it. And he works there till like 2 a.m. and then does it all over the next day. Remember those days?
I do. Now I'm like, oh man, I don't know if I want to change out those brake pads. I've got so much other work to do. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you hanging out with me. It's obviously turned into like almost like a full episode. I feel like I could talk to you forever. I'm really looking forward to seeing you out at Sports Car Vacationland and catching up and, you know, seeing what you've been up to. I'm really excited to see the engine stuff that you're doing. Obviously, as you build chassis and stuff, that's kind of the next evolution. Yeah,
man. We took a deep dive into the engine stuff. We started with, I can tell you a little bit about it. We started with the 911-4. That's an engine that a couple of different guys have made. Porsche did a version of it back in the day, but then Dean Palopoulos took a 911 engine, 6-cylinder, and he took the center 2 cylinders out, turned it into a 4-cylinder. So you have all the benefits of the 911, but in the packaging of the 4-cylinder. around the same time, this would have been probably 30 to 35 years ago. Chuck Beck of the Beck Porsche 550 replica
Yep.
fame, he did the same thing. And I believe he built two engines. And my understanding, Chuck's son told me that Chuck and Dean kind of went back and forth and traded information on how they were doing it. And so here you have this 911-4 that is it's a pretty bulletproof little engine. Dean made a business out of it. And so we started with his case and then worked with the firm to develop 4-valve per cylinder. So it's a 16 valve 4-cam head and top end cam chests, I guess you could say. And that allows that little engine to pump a lot of air through and allows it to rev up a lot higher. So our analysis that in the simulators that we ran on it showed that engine running up to 14,000 RPM without problem. And
well, 911 already revs, so that's crazy. I guess if you all that rotational mass of 2 extra cylinders and a third of a crankshaft going away really opens things up.
It does. And then with the cross-drilled crank and the oiling benefits on that shorter, kind of a stubby crankshaft in the 4-cylinder, the bottom end is, I would say, a lot happier at those RPMs than the 6-cylinder would be, with the rotating mass, and that oil just has further to travel. So it's pretty promising what we've seen. And our first engines, they're almost done being built right now. The first ones we slated at 2.4 liter, 300 horsepower at 8,600 RPM, just to keep it very conservative. And we'll probably end up running, my goal, I would like to see them run up to about 10,500 RPM, and then we'll change the cams and get power and a little bit of a different power band on those. But then things kind of got out of hand from there. Everybody's
What do you mean? They're already out of hand, dude.
Well, so there's, we've done one car with the 6-cylinder. The R2 had a 3.6 liter, and that car is a hoot. It screams. But we thought it would be interesting to explore the flat 8, doing a flat 8. And so as that exploration grew, we ended up, we jumped in all in and skipped the 6-cylinder, just because I wouldn't say everything's been done that could be done, but a lot has been done with the 6. And we're developing our own 5.3 liter, 600 horsepower flat 8, 32 valve 4-cam. And
is it similar to like a 908 engine? But that would have been not a 4-cam, right?
No, I think that would have been single overhead cams on each bank.
Okay.
Yeah, so it is somewhat similar, but I may be off on the 908 specifically. I want to say the earlier flat 8 that Porsche did was a 2.3 liter, so pretty small displacement, if I remember right, 2.3 or 2.5.
God, that's small.
And yeah, and we're doing the 5.3 liter based on 3.6 architecture, basically.
So is that just like a 911 case with like another 911 case kind of welded, like the aluminum case is split, welded, and you make a custom crankshaft? I'm just trying to wrap my mind around what it takes to do this.
So we started, the first thing you do is look at what's been done and what worked and didn't work, and why did they stop doing it? And without divulging too much information,
don't do that.
We figured out why they stopped doing it. That flat 8 is a very complicated engine to keep happy without it destroying itself. And we found out why, and we've corrected that. And then we have built our own case. We're building our own crank. It will fit in the 911 packaging. It's within 2 millimeters of a 911. So we've designed it so that it will bolt in to a 964 or 993. I think it could bolt into earlier cars as well. There's a couple of things that changed a little bit, but
It'll be a little while before I could take a loan out on my house to buy one, but hopefully they're done by then.
Well, if it's any consolation, I can't afford them either, but I at least get to play with them, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be a monster. We'll be cutting the metal on those in about 6 weeks. We'll start cutting metal and milling the cases and beginning the process of building the first one. We've all the simulations and the FEA testing and the analysis digitally or computerized is looking pretty much dialed at this point. So we're just about ready to go.
That sounds fun. I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Thank you.
All right, man. I'm gonna let you go. I appreciate you hanging out.
Okay, Kris. Yeah, thanks for the time.
You bet. You be good, and we'll see you in like 2 weeks, man.
Yeah, we'll see you out there. That's going to be awesome.
All right. Take care.
All right, bye.